Artificial intelligence is usually presented as progress. Smarter tools, faster systems, better efficiency, lower costs. It is framed as the next natural step in technological evolution. And on the surface, that framing makes sense. AI writes faster than humans. It analyzes data more accurately. It never gets tired. It never takes breaks. It never asks for a raise. From a purely economic perspective, it looks like a perfect worker. But the story most people hear is only the optimistic half. The part about convenience. The part about innovation. The part about productivity. What is rarely discussed is how power shifts when intelligence itself becomes a commodity. Not just physical labor. Not just repetitive tasks. But thinking, deciding, judging, creating. When those capabilities move from people to systems, something fundamental changes. Not suddenly. Not violently. Structurally. And structural changes do not come with warning labels. They reveal themselves slowly. In hiring patterns. In corporate profits. In wage trends. In who gets promoted. In who disappears from payrolls. At first, AI looks like a tool that helps workers. Then it becomes a system that replaces part of their job. Then it becomes the primary system. And finally, the worker becomes the backup. This transition is not announced. It is normalized. A new feature here. An update there. A quiet policy change in the background. Until one day people look around and realize that the economic ground beneath them has shifted. This documentary is not about whether AI is good or bad. It is about what happens when intelligence becomes centralized. When a small number of platforms control systems that can replace millions of workers. When decision-making becomes automated. When accountability becomes blurred. When power quietly migrates away from individuals and toward infrastructure. Because beneath the excitement about innovation, a darker truth is emerging. AI is not just changing how work is done. It is changing who holds leverage in the economy. And once leverage shifts, it rarely shifts back. How AI became a power system. Artificial intelligence did not begin as a threat. It began as a convenience. Early AI systems were narrow and limited. They corrected spelling. They recommended videos. They filtered spam. They predicted traffic. They made digital life smoother. They were invisible. Because they were invisible, they were not controversial. No one lost their job because of a spell checker. No one worried about a recommendation engine. AI was seen as background infrastructure. Then something changed. Instead of helping humans decide what to do, AI began doing the work itself. Writing text. Generating images. Editing video. Analyzing financial data. Handling customer service. Writing software code. These were not low-skill tasks. They were professional skills. And that is what made the shift so important. When machines replace physical labor, society adapts. It happened in factories. It happened in agriculture. It happened in logistics. But when machines replace cognitive labor, the impact is different. Because cognitive labor is where economic power concentrates. It is where management happens. It is where strategy happens. It is where value creation happens. This is why the rise of AI is not just a productivity story. It is a power story. To understand why, we have to look at who controls AI systems. Building large-scale AI is expensive. It requires massive computing infrastructure, huge data sets, specialized engineering talent, continuous investment. This creates a natural barrier to entry. Only large organizations can compete at that level. Which means only a small number of companies end up owning the most powerful systems. This concentrates intelligence in a way that has never happened before. In the past, intelligence was distributed. Millions of people had specialized knowledge. Millions of people made decisions in their own jobs. Now, more and more decisions are being routed through centralized systems. Hiring decisions, pricing decisions, content moderation decisions, loan approvals, risk assessments, performance evaluations. Each of these used to involve human judgment. Now they are increasingly automated. This creates a new kind of economic structure. Not just a market of goods and services, but a market of decisions. And whoever controls the decision systems controls the outcomes. This is where AI stops being a tool and becomes infrastructure. Infrastructure has a different kind of power. When you control infrastructure, everyone else depends on you. Roads, electricity grids, telecommunications networks. These are not just businesses. They are foundational systems. AI is becoming a cognitive infrastructure. A layer that sits beneath the economy and shapes how it functions. And like all infrastructure, it tends to centralize. Because scale makes it cheaper. Because network effects make it stronger. Because data accumulation makes it smarter. This creates a feedback loop. More users, more data, better performance, more users. Which leads to monopoly-like dynamics. Even if there is competition, it is uneven. Smaller players cannot match the scale of investment. Which means they cannot match the quality of the systems. Which means they cannot attract users. Which means they fall behind. This is why AI markets tend to consolidate quickly. And consolidation means power concentration. Another layer of power comes from opacity. Most AI systems are black boxes. People do not know how they make decisions. They do not know what data they use. They do not know what biases are embedded. They cannot challenge outcomes easily. When a human manager makes a bad decision, there is someone to argue with. When an algorithm makes a bad decision, there is no one. The system becomes an authority. And authorities that cannot be questioned are dangerous. Not because they are malicious, but because they are unaccountable. This unaccountability shifts power again. Companies can blame algorithms for unpopular decisions. Regulators struggle to understand technical systems. Workers cannot appeal automated judgments. Consumers cannot audit pricing logic. All of this reduces transparency. And reduced transparency increases power asymmetry. Another factor is dependency. As companies integrate AI deeper into their operations, they become dependent on it. They restructure workflows around it. They lay off human staff. They retrain teams to work alongside it. At a certain point, turning it off becomes impossible. Not because it is technically impossible, but because it would destroy the business. This locks companies into AI-driven systems, and locks workers into AI-mediated labor markets, which further entrenches power. This is why the rise of AI is not just a technological shift. It is an institutional shift. It changes who controls work, who controls information, who controls decisions, who controls economic outcomes. And once those controls move into centralized systems, reversing them becomes extremely difficult. How control quietly shifted. When people talk about AI taking over jobs, they usually imagine a dramatic moment. A sudden wave of layoffs. A clear announcement. A visible disruption. But that is not how power actually shifts. Power shifts quietly. It moves through small decisions that seem reasonable in isolation. A company automates customer support to reduce costs. Another uses AI to speed up content production. Another replaces analysts with software tools. Another integrates automated hiring systems. Each of these decisions makes sense on its own. Together, they transform the entire labor market. The first stage is assistance. AI helps workers do their jobs faster. It drafts emails. It summarizes reports. It generates ideas. It handles repetitive tasks. At this stage, workers feel empowered. They become more productive. They save time. They appear more valuable to employers. This is when adoption accelerates, because the benefits are obvious. The second stage is substitution. AI starts doing entire tasks instead of parts of them. A system writes full articles instead of outlines. A system generates complete designs instead of sketches. A system handles full customer conversations instead of routing tickets. At this stage, companies begin to rethink staffing. They do not fire people immediately. They simply stop hiring. Teams stop growing. Open roles remain unfilled. Contract budgets shrink. From the outside, nothing looks wrong. But inside organizations, headcount quietly declines. The third stage is replacement. AI becomes the default system. Humans become the exception. A company that once needed a team of writers now needs one editor. A company that once needed a support department now needs a supervisor. A company that once needed analysts now needs a single operator. This is where layoffs finally appear. Not because companies suddenly became cruel, but because the economic logic changed. When a system can do most of the work at a fraction of the cost, keeping humans becomes inefficient. This is not a moral argument. It is a financial one. And financial logic dominates corporate decision-making. This is how control shifts. Not through force. Through incentives. Another quiet shift happens in skill valuation. When AI systems become widely available, certain skills lose value. Writing becomes cheaper. Design becomes cheaper. Analysis becomes cheaper. Coding becomes cheaper. Not because humans became worse, but because supply exploded. When supply increases and demand stays the same, prices fall. This is basic economics. Which means workers who built careers on those skills see their income decline. They compete with machines. And machines do not need wages. This creates a race to the bottom. People accept lower pay. They work longer hours. They take worse conditions. Not because they want to, but because their alternatives disappear. Another layer of control comes from platformization. As AI tools become embedded into platforms, workers become dependent on those platforms. They cannot easily switch providers. They cannot easily export their work. They cannot easily negotiate terms. Because the platform controls access to the market. This is the same dynamic seen in the gig economy. Except now it is spreading into white-collar work. Writers depend on content platforms. Designers depend on creative platforms. Programmers depend on development platforms. Each platform sets rules. Each platform controls pricing. Each platform collects data. And data is power. The more data a platform has, the better its AI becomes. The better its AI becomes, the more users it attracts. The more users it attracts, the more data it collects. This creates a self-reinforcing loop, which locks users into an ecosystem they cannot escape. This is how technological convenience becomes economic captivity. Another subtle shift happens in decision authority. As companies trust AI systems more, they defer decisions to them. Hiring algorithms screen resumes. Pricing algorithms set prices. Risk algorithms approve loans. Performance algorithms evaluate workers. This reduces human oversight. Because humans become reliant on automated outputs. They stop questioning results. They assume the system is objective. But systems are not neutral. They reflect the incentives of their creators. If a company optimizes an algorithm for profit, it will make decisions that maximize profit. even if those decisions harm workers or customers. And because the algorithm is seen as a technical system rather than a human one, it escapes moral scrutiny. This is what makes AI power so dangerous. It hides behind complexity. It operates without accountability. It makes decisions that affect millions of lives without democratic oversight. And it does all of this quietly. The economic and social costs. The benefits of AI are easy to measure. Higher productivity. Lower costs. Faster output. Higher corporate profits. The costs are harder to measure. Because they are distributed. Because they are delayed. Because they are invisible at first. The first major cost is employment erosion. Not mass unemployment. Not sudden collapse. But gradual displacement. People lose contracts. Teams shrink. Roles disappear. Careers stall. This creates a slow bleed, which is more destabilizing than a sudden shock. Because people do not receive clear signals. They do not know when to retrain. They do not know which skills will survive. They do not know which industries are safe. This uncertainty creates anxiety, which reduces consumer spending, which slows economic growth, which leads to more layoffs. This is how a technology shock becomes a recessionary force. Another cost is wage stagnation. As AI increases labor supply, it reduces bargaining power. Workers compete against machines. And machines always win on price. This pushes wages down, even for people who keep their jobs. This creates a paradox. Productivity rises. Corporate profits rise. Stock prices rise. But wages do not rise at the same pace. Which means inequality increases. And inequality is not just a moral issue. It is an economic one. When wealth concentrates at the top, consumer demand weakens. Because rich people do not spend proportionally more. They save. They invest. They speculate. Which means money circulates less through the real economy. Which slows growth. Which creates instability. Another cost is skill degradation. When AI systems do more of the work, humans do less. This sounds efficient. But it creates dependency. Workers lose practice. They lose expertise. They lose confidence. Over time, they become operators instead of professionals. They supervise systems instead of creating value. This dekilling makes workers more replaceable, which further weakens their bargaining power, which increases job insecurity, which increases anxiety. Another cost is institutional fragility. As companies become dependent on AI systems, their resilience decreases. A software bug can halt operations. A data breach can destroy trust. A system failure can cripple an entire industry. This fragility is the hidden cost of efficiency. Highly optimized systems are often brittle. They perform well under normal conditions. They collapse under stress. This creates systemic risk, which regulators are not prepared for. Another cost is political instability. As people lose jobs and income security, they lose trust in institutions. They look for explanations. They look for scapegoats. They look for protection. This fuels polarization, which makes governance harder, which delays regulation, which allows problems to grow. This is how economic change becomes social crisis. Another cost is moral displacement. When decisions are automated, responsibility becomes unclear. Who is accountable when an algorithm denies someone a job? Who is responsible when a system sets unfair prices? Who is to blame when an AI-driven decision causes harm? This ambiguity erodes ethical norms. Because no one feels responsible. And when no one feels responsible, harm becomes normalized. These costs are not abstract. They are already visible. In falling wages, in rising job insecurity, in market concentration, in political polarization. They are the dark truth beneath the surface of AI progress. Why this is hard to stop? If the risks of AI are so severe, why is nothing stopping its expansion? The answer is incentives. Every major actor in the system benefits from continued automation. Companies benefit from lower costs. Investors benefit from higher profits. Consumers benefit from lower prices. Governments benefit from increased productivity. The losers are workers. And workers have the least power. This creates a structural imbalance. Those who benefit control decision-making. Those who lose bear the consequences. This is why meaningful reform is so difficult. Another barrier is competition. Even if one company wants to slow down automation, it cannot. Because its competitors will not. If one firm chooses to keep human workers, it becomes less competitive, which threatens its survival. This creates a prisoner's dilemma. Everyone knows the outcome is bad. But no one can afford to change course alone. Another barrier is technological momentum. Once a system is built, it is used. Because sunk costs are powerful. Companies invest billions in AI infrastructure. They cannot justify abandoning it. They have to use it, even if it causes harm. Another barrier is political inertia. Regulators move slowly. Technology moves fast. By the time laws are passed, systems have already changed. And because AI is complex, policymakers struggle to understand it. This creates regulatory lag, which allows problems to grow unchecked. Another barrier is public confusion. People enjoy AI benefits. They like faster services. They like lower prices. They like convenience. This makes it hard to mobilize opposition. Because the costs are invisible. And the benefits are immediate. This is why the dark truth about AI is not that it is evil. It is that it is unstoppable under current incentives. Not because it cannot be controlled, but because no one with power wants to control it. Artificial intelligence is not just a technology. It is a power system. It redistributes leverage. It reshapes labor. It concentrates wealth. It changes how decisions are made. And it does all of this quietly. Without public debate. Without democratic oversight. Without clear accountability. This does not make the future predetermined. But it does make the present moment dangerous. Because once power concentrates, it rarely decentralizes. If you want to understand how technology, money, and power are quietly reshaping the world, subscribe to this channel. Each week, we break down the systems behind the headlines. Not with hype. Not with outrage. But with calm, long-form explanations. The next episode explores another hidden shift already changing the economy. Because the most important transformations rarely announce themselves. They simply happen.